Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of For the Good of the Game. I am really super stoked today, not only because we're filming this on Veterans Day, even though you may not be watching it then. So I'm wrapping up my Veterans Day weekend here in Phoenix with a good friend and colleague who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and give him a chance to open up here in just a second. Thurmond Moore is not only a superb D-line coach who played at San Jose State, but he's coached at multiple major college programs throughout the United States, NFL Europe, the UFL, as well as the NFL. During his career, he's either trained or coached a number of notable athletes, including Dwight Freeney, Simeon Rice, Joey Porter, Pat Williams, J.J. Watt, Cameron Jordan, and Aaron Donald. Thurmond, we're really super pumped to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, John, it's really good to hear from you and to see you. Kind of go back quite a ways. And
yeah,
it's just a great opportunity for me.
Well, I want to kind of open up with something that most people watching this might not expect, and that is because one of our target audiences is the veteran community, and certainly not every veteran's a football junkie, but we have our fair share among the veteran community. And you have a very unique perspective and viewpoint and respect for the military because of your dad. So I wanted to kind of open up and give you the floor for a couple of minutes and let you tell your story, in terms of the thrill that you had growing up with a father in the military for a number of years.
Yeah, well, kind of the interesting part, first reason I am a coach is my dad. I remember we were stationed in Canada, up in Newfoundland, Canada, and then, to have the opportunity to have your father coach your team, and it was baseball, not even football, and at that point in time, I just said, what better thing to do is to be involved with your son or some other young men while giving them an opportunity to, play a sport. But also about my father, he served in the Korean War, served in World War II. He also served in the Vietnam War. That generation was just phenomenal. One of the biggest things I remember from my father is that he would really never, ever share what happened over there. But, he would come back, off of assignment, and then, we grew closer. But then as I grew older and he was starting to retire, it was a little different just because of the fact that, he went to Vietnam and came back. He had a bamboo shoot that went through his foot, eventually having had to amputate his leg. And so, they just kind of going over that. But, that was my dad and my hero and everything else. But so never really ever getting a chance to talk about it. And then about 7 years ago, interesting enough, John, we were up in Canada Toronto, in fact, doing a FBU camp. My mother called. My father had been ill, and she said that, it's kind of he's going on his last time. And so I got a chance to fly back and talk to him and be there. I know he hadn't been really alert, but when I came in the room, he sat up, and we had to exchange some words. And that was probably one of the wonderful things in my life. I got a chance to see my father before he passed.
Absolutely.
So, of course, what happens, we go to the funeral. I'm the only male in the family. I have two sisters, and I'm sure they could have done a better job than I did. But I was asked to do my father's eulogy. Mm-hmm. I've seen, all the awards he has and the ribbons he has in the house. I've been around that. But, I started to read his, what was his life was about. And lo and behold, John, Bronze Star Medal winner. And it flabbergasted me because here was a guy, a hero, always a hero in my eyes because it was my dad.
Sure.
But to know the sacrifices he made and to be given that award for me still to this day, I talk to people or even guys will say, hey, tell me the most interesting thing happened in your life. And they're ready for me to give them something about football. I said, let me tell you, and I think I try to use it for young kids too. Try to make sure you find out who your father is. I know there's so many things going on where you might not think it's that important, but, I don't think it would have affected myself, my father's life. and I know the Lord does something for a purpose and a reason for everything He does. But wow, I mean, it's
That's
still
tremendous.
wow factor in my life.
Yeah, it's kind of humbling. I mean, when you look at it, and I think that's cool. I want to go back to where you started that story, and I think it's fascinating because it's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about with regard to coaching. You said you got into coaching because of your dad and the fact that when you started playing, he was coaching your team in baseball. What lessons learned, character traits, things that you look back on from those days, whether it be youth league baseball, when you first started football or whatever, and that mix of being a military brat, having a dad that coached you, do you think that you have pulled forward and carried with you throughout your coaching career as you try to impart the right information, not just the football techniques, but the right life skills to other players?
Yes, and so interesting to say that. I also coached on three of my Caleb, who's a junior. He'll be playing. He plays quarterback at Lake Forest College. But when I was at Brophy, I was fortunate enough. I was a defensive coordinator, and he's a quarterback. So I didn't coach him, but I was on that team. But then when I left college, interesting how things go. I stopped coaching college football because of the fact something wasn't right. I mean, I had some opportunities, and then we came out here and made decisions to do things to keep the kids kind of grounded more. And so I coached his youth team, Caleb's youth team. And so the interesting part that I kind of got, and it kind of resonates with me through the whole time, my whole career, is that they're your sons first, and love your sons. Don't fall in love with your son. I know people tell kids, tell your parents, ask them how their day was. And I think I try to flip that role and ask them how their day was outside of football or sports. And so Caleb and I used to have some phenomenal conversations on the way back from Brophy. It's to have the journey and have the opportunity to kind of sit back and watch him kind of do things that I didn't ask him to do. Like, so he's trying for a competing job. I never told him to leave early in the day and go visit with the coach, and the guy I work for now, Coach Molander. So he would leave early. I mean, I was already gone because I had to get some things done because I was teaching summer school. But he'd leave early and go over last night's practice and how the schedule is going to be this, that day. And I think those are all things that are going to make him a champion for life.
Absolutely.
And then one of the things in coaching, I'm a guy that I feel like, there's two sides of me. One, I'm going to love you up, and you're going to know that I really care about you as a person. And then the other side is, when it's time to go, it's time to go. So a good man named Jim Kunan, he coached at Orange Lutheran High School in California. That was actually my first high school job. And he said, hey, the most important thing is that your heart shakes hands with the hearts of your players. So
it's a great way to look at it.
That's kind of, and then we're trying to build them to be champions for life.
I think that's an awesome lesson. When you look at, whether it's been some of the high school kids you've had a chance to coach more recently, or some of the guys that you've trained that have gone on to bigger and better things in the NFL, and arguably that list I went through is, among the group that you've had an opportunity to work with, some notables. What common traits have you seen among those guys, the ones that have achieved at the highest level at major college and gone on to the NFL? What common traits have you noticed in terms of, the stuff that translates from life skills onto the field, or just, whether it's work ethic or whatever? Because, I've heard so many coaches, college and NFL coaches, talk about the fact that they'll take hard work over talent any day of the week. What did you see among some of those players that you were blessed to coach and influence as they came up that you thought were kind of common among that caused or was instrumental in their success?
One is just their ability to understand on what it might take as far as mentally the process, the stuff that, to be successful. It almost integrity, because if they said they were going to do it, they were going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about saying, hey, I'm going to get 60 sacks. No, the integral part was, hey, coach, can you give me some help, or we watch some video with me, and I want to be there at a certain time. They were there. I mean, my biggest thoughts about JJ is that he was always first to come and last to leave, but not on the field. But we'd have classroom sessions where we'd talk about football, and he always wanted to know the next question. And what was neat for me to see as he's gone on in his career is I watched the things that we talk about, and I still think he put some of that stuff on the field.
Absolutely.
Aaron, I watched his game last night. They were talking, oh yeah, he's athletic, he works out with the DBs. Well, when I had Aaron, I almost thought he was going to be a Mike linebacker because he's so athletic. He ran 4.66 on the combine. But the one thing about him, he had a quiet confidence, a very humble guy. And then once again, come early, stay late. Can I do that? Oh, can I do it better? And usually they're always looking for the one extra step or one extra piece that might put in that puzzles to make them as good as they can possibly be.
What do you typically share? What are some skills that you share aside from the technique pieces? What else do you share as you go through, those sessions with those kids based on your experience, coaching guys that have played at the highest level, coaching in major college and the NFL, that you believe will set those guys up for success and give them something to put in their hip pocket to use later in terms of knowledge?
It's kind of interesting, but the little things, I mean, I think I've been blessed seeing things when they happen. And one of the biggest things that I like guys to do is try to correct it before the next day, so that if you play on a Friday night, correct it so it helps you win Friday night instead of correcting it Saturday. So actually, when we're doing drills, I'll ask them, so what, instead of me telling them all the time you did this or you did that, I ask them, what did you feel, or why didn't you feel you were as good as on that one? Or, hey, that was a heck of a job. Part of it is like you talk about positive coaching. I think a little sugar goes a long way.
Yeah.
And so where if you give a guy a positive comment, but and then you give a guy a comment that maybe, you can see it's on him. He kind of wears it on his sleeve. And I think after you give that comment, let him absorb a little bit of what's going on, and then go put your arm around him and say, hey, but if you fix that, how much better you'll be as a player, but I think one of the things I try to do, and it's part of even the Tackle Academy that you talked about, is I try not to have too long of verbiage, maybe a hot word. I mean, so I know part of the thing we do is shoot your uppercuts. I mean, and during the game, I don't want to tell a guy, well, you need to, when you get ready to go make that tackle, I want you to put your guns in your holsters. And I'm probably going to talk all my lingo because that's what I do. But if I just say shoot your uppercuts, he knows that I want to, have him finish through the armpits, and I want his hips to come roll forward so that he gets all of the, power he can possibly get in making a tackle. And the thing is, too, I know I watch other people coach, and one of the things is you can say keep your head up. Mm-hmm. Or keep your eyes up, and what's the most what grabs the attention of the young man the most? Usually when you keep your eyes up, because there's such a small, more of a visual point. And then the last thing, but not least, like I always say that specific is dynamic, and that's even in your terminology, or you're coaching to a young man or girl, whatever. If you're specific with what you're asking them, then usually they're going to be a little more dynamic in what they do.
Yeah, I think that in my coaching experience is certainly far more limited than yours. But in terms of all of the bulk of my experience being at the youth through high school level, I found that the same thing applies with the younger kids. And as you get older, obviously, you just kind of validated it's probably the same with all athletes. Simple is better. You don't have to be complicated. In fact, I told one of the other coaches the other day, part of what I admire so much about guys like yourself is to be able to take a PhD understanding of the game of football and break it down to kids in middle school and high school at a level that they can understand, that they can internalize, and then go out on the field and drill to those exacting standards and create that improvement as they go through the process. And that's really all about what coaching is teaching and then providing feedback for improvement. And it's those kids, I think, that do end up with, the developing that coachability and being able to really listen. I tell kids all the time, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because you were intended to listen twice as much as you talk, despite the fact that I'm a prolific talker. Coach, what I want to do is kind of go through something that, and we'll have some other cues off of this, but I'm going to kind of go through a little bit. There's just some random questions that I like to ask everybody. And you may have already touched on a couple of these based on the way we opened up here, but that's okay. I want to be able to walk through these. And the first one is, if you have one, as you look back when you first started with whatever sport you played, maybe it was baseball when your dad was coaching, do you have a favorite youth sports memory that you've carried forward as you've gotten older?
Yeah, that was my dad. Because, I remember I can still see us looking out the dugout, and he was beside me, and just, top of the world. I was the top of the world, yeah. Because, it was in Canada, but it didn't matter where it was. Mm-hmm. It was just that my dad was beside me, and I got a chance to hang out with him and spend some more time with him. Yeah,
that's for me, my dad did not play sports, but we did a lot together as I was growing up, and that was always very valuable, so I certainly appreciate that perspective. If you have one from your days at San Jose State, do you have a particular play or game or something that sticks out in your mind that is one of your all-time favorites?
Yeah, of course. So our two our interesting rivalries are Stanford and Cal, because they're all part of that
proximity.
Area. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, our Doug Kay, who was our running back coach at the time, he said, he mentioned us, hey, there's a guy named Gordy Saraceno who is a heck of a player. You got to make sure if you get a chance to let him know that we're going to be physical this game, you do so. So I think it was the second quarter, and I think it was ISO, and I got a pretty good chance to square up on him. And the fun part is I squared up all the time. Gordy, took a pretty dang good shot, and I looked over at Coach K, and I could just see a smile on his face. So I was like, that's cool. I'm good.
Yeah, really.
I'm good.
Check that block. Yeah. That's awesome. What about favorite non-football activity nowadays? What do you like to do when you're either coaching or watching football?
Cook.
Really?
Yeah. I have. My youngest. He's 18 and a half, 17 and a half, but he's on the way to, finishing high school, and actually he's going to go in the Army, which is good. But he likes to eat. But I kind of got started cooking, when I used to go back home with my mom on Thanksgiving. I'd make turkey enchiladas after Thanksgiving's Day, and then I really like cooking ribs, and I like to dabble a little bit. Yesterday, made little tacos. I can't wait to have today. I try to make 2 meals in one day to cover a couple things. But
good meal prep. Yeah, and I always used to joke. I said I'm the same way. Now my wife's a phenomenal cook, but I love cooking because I like to eat. And it's as I get older that has been an ongoing challenge. So we have to weigh the good with the bad.
Yep.
Of the guys you've had a chance to work with, and I'm not asking you to diminish anybody else, but of the guys that you've worked with either currently or have played in the NFL level, anybody that sticks out in your mind is just ever so much head and shoulders above everybody else or remarkable as an athlete or a person?
Interesting. Phenomenal player, and his career didn't exactly go, but Alden Smith. And Alden was Rookie of the Year with the 49ers. and he had another guy named Smith that I think he was an old Steeler, but Alden was just phenomenal. I mean, I have videotapes of him doing things, and I can't even imagine. He could have had a remarkable career. The craziness about it is I think he came out of in the NFL because he was a redshirt sophomore, but he was only like 19 years old, not very mature, you know. So he wins Rookie of the Year. I think JJ had 22 sacks. He might have had 21 and a half, or vice versa. And then he goes down to the Super Bowl and then gets a DUI. And I'm going, oh, you just can't do that. And he was personable enough that I could pick up the phone, which I do with the guys I work with. Hey, how you doing? Don't do that type of deal. But he was, he had so many special tools. And then the other guy is Clark Hagens. Clark would chase you to the, he was at Colorado State, went there. He's 192 pounds. And if you were his assignment and you hadn't had to go to the bathroom up at the fifth deck, he would chase you there. But he's a long chaser, and I talked to him quite a bit. And I think he played 17 years, 14 with the Steelers, 2 with the here in Phoenix, and then he had 2 more years in San Francisco. But I mean, he would work. He works really. I mean, you would go like, there's something different about Clark, and that is because he's extremely intelligent. But, loyal guy, just phenomenal.
That's awesome. If I don't know if you're a movie guy, you got a favorite movie?
Matrix.
The Matrix. Interesting.
Yeah, the series. Because just all the hand fighting that goes on there, you know what I'm saying?
I can see why. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I it came out, I watched it. The new one came out, I watch it. I bought the box set, and I watch it, and I still watch it just for, the hand. I mean, you can, if you want to get me suckered in, if you get something with the little hand fighting scene, I'm on it.
That's awesome. And have you actually kind of taken a step back a couple of times and said, I'm going to incorporate that into what I'm doing?
Try to, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you grew up, whether it be Little League with your dad or high school ball or playing at San Jose State, do you have someone that sticks out in your mind that was a favorite of yours as a coach?
Oh, I had so many phenomenal coaches. So many phenomenal. When I was at San Jose State, we had a guy named Dick Sullivan. And Coach Sullivan was the offensive line coach. And I think he stayed in college coaching for a couple of years, but ex-Marine, big heart. But hard, he was a dude. So we would lift, and if I tell some people the programs we lift, they'd go like, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So there was campus and there's a South Campus, and it's about 2.5 miles. Coach Sullivan, lineman first, and I was a fullback, so I kind of went like third, and then he would do linebackers, and then fullbacks and running backs and receivers. Let everybody go and beat everybody back.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I was like, that's a bad.
Well, you talk about lead by example,
yeah. And he was actually just, and this is 1974, and, still some of the basis of things I do is from the stuff he taught us as far as periodization, and then, being tough. And we were pretty successful. I think out of 3 years out there, we won. I think all 3 years we won that PC2A or back then that conference title. But we just had some tough dudes, man. And we still hit each other up and stuff like that. But it was Coach Sullivan.
That's neat.
Real deal.
That's cool. What about outside the kitchen when you're either not cooking or if you are, favorite snack food?
What have I come up with now? Oh my gosh. So I work with a guy named Tim Warnock, and Tim's we're physical education school teachers for like GAPA, which is a small school in the Eastmark area. It's high. So I go there for 3 periods. And this guy got me stuck on lemon almonds.
Really? That's unique.
Lemon almonds. And guess what?
What?
I got Amy stuck on lemon almonds. I brought it back home. Tim got it back. I'll take this home. I took it home. And I swear, I go, okay, Amy, just give me some over here. And you can take the big bag. Well, first I said, do you want one? These are good. And he doesn't eat candy. And so it's not candy, you know. And so, man, that bag was gone. I even laughed, too. We have a guy there that I coach with, a guy named Adam Schermeyer. So once I joking around, I gave him one. You know what he does? Now I put a bottle there, and I'm hoping that I get some the next day. They're gone. And they're gone.
Yeah.
But they're phenomenal.
Sharon, like, I might have to check that out. That's not one I've heard of.
Lemon almonds, bro. Let me tell you.
I'm gonna check it out.
Because almonds are good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we incorporated just recently. It was funny because I had, out of the blue, I went by the store to get some almonds for a snack food. And I got almonds that were honey cinnamon flavored.
Okay.
And I usually will take almonds and mix them with some raisins.
Okay.
And because of the honey cinnamon flavor on top of the actual taste of the almond with raisins, it tasted just like eating a piece of like cinnamon raisin bread, like you would get at the store. It was crazy. So to kind of wrap up here, Coach, because the idea, one of the things I want to do, I was asked about what my why was behind this podcast. And for me, it's multifaceted. The podcast is really about a foundation, and I'm going to talk a little bit with you after we finish off camera about some things in the future. But it's really a foundation for some things I want to build. But fundamentally, I believe that there's a piece that many people overlook, and that is that in my mind, every child deserves to have that one rock star moment, that one set of 15 minutes of fame. I don't care if it's in football or band or art or whatever, but obviously my passion is football, and that's what I've chosen as a platform. So when you look forward at those types of things, and particularly where you are now at Eastmark and the kids that you come in contact with on a daily basis, whether it's interacting in the hallway or classroom or it's on the football field, and as far as under the for the good of the game type of mantra, what kind of messages do you want to leave or propagate among the kids that you come in contact with, just as a person, as a coach, as a mentor that they look up to? What kind of things do you want them to walk away feeling when you speak with them?
One is prior planning always prevents poor performance. Mm-hmm. Two, it's okay. When I tell them to stick their neck out, it's okay to really care about something. I think there's such a neutrality going on when people are afraid to say, I did this, I do this. And it's okay to be great. It's okay to care about something. That's one of the big things. And then the other thing is just, a little sugar goes a long way. It's okay to tell somebody, nice job. That deal. But then also have integrity and say, hey, you could do this better, or you could do that better.
That's awesome. That's a great message to leave with. For any players and parents that are watching this, people that may follow this podcast over time will see that I'm a huge believer in positivity, because I fundamentally believe that it takes just as much energy to be positive as it does negative, and we've got plenty of negativity without wanting any more in the world. So for me, it's all about the simplicity and the positive message that you can bring, because you never know, by being a positive, well-meaning person, that you can lift someone else up and make their day better. And you never know, when you do that, you may be saving a life, creating a great opportunity for somebody. So I ask you that, not just inside the game of football, but in anything you do in life or in sports, make sure that whatever you do it for the good of the game. Until next time, we'll see you later. Take care.